Hello, everybody. Welcome to my Boomer Buddies podcast, where we tell it like it was and is. Today, we're going to do part 2 of the Mount Rushmore with Trevor J. Brown. Trevor, welcome back.
Always great to be with you, Rick. These lists are fun to put together for sure. It makes you think.
Last time we did the Mount Rushmore for female singers. What a tough job that was. And very enlightening to what Trevor chose as opposed to what I chose. What we're doing is we chose our favorites, not necessarily the best. It's a subjective list of who we like, our favorites. For whatever emotional reasons and nostalgic reasons we chose. We had some honorable mentions as well. Today, we're going to do the Mount Rushmore for male singers. Trevor, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay, first one. This was the easy one for me. 4-octave vocal range, member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, member of the Songwriters Hall of Fame. At one point, Rick, Roger Daltrey of The Who said, "This man, the best virtuoso rock and roll singer of all time. I think he's the greatest frontman of all time, Mr. Freddie Mercury."
Wow. He doesn't hit me that way. I guess I went and looked way far back, but I can't deny that it's a good choice. It's a really good choice. 4 octaves. It's incredible.
Of course, his work with Queen.
Yeah.
I would encourage people to listen to a song like It's a Hard Life from the album The Works. Gives you chills every time. Gives me chills every time I listen to that song. But then on the deluxe edition of that record, The Works, there's that same song. Again, it's called It's a Hard Life. And there's a live version of it when they were in Rio. And there's like 100,000 people on the beach that are singing along to this song. And his vocal performance of that, singing it live, is just incredible. Listen to anything from the Live Aid performance at Wembley. Incredible. Solo career-wise, I love his song Mr. Bad Guy, I Was Born to Love You. He was like all over in terms of being able to sing. He could hit the very low notes. He could hit the very high notes. Obviously 4 octaves. He could go all over the place. I love his flamboyancy. I love his style. He was an entertainer. I wonder if we still had Freddie today, what he would be like, because obviously we lost him way too young due to AIDS. But he was somebody who loved to work. I mean, there were pictures of him at the very end with him and the boys from Queen in the studio. Weeks up until his death, he was recording vocals, and because he loved to work. He was just such a talent. We talk a lot about David Bowie, and we reminisced about his career a lot. We talked just weeks ago about it was the 10-year anniversary of his death, and we think about David Bowie and sort of his style and impact and legacy. And to me, Bowie and Mercury were cut from the same cloth. They were men who did it on their own terms. They did it with no apologies. And that's, to me, what made both of them special. But in the case of this segment, Freddie Mercury special.
Freddie Mercury, Trevor J. Brown's first choice. Trevor J. Brown, I want to point out, that if you don't know, if you missed the last episode, he is not a boomer.
No.
But he knows boomer music. His late father brought him up well. He knows a lot of the stuff that I do from the boomer era, but he knows the newer stuff too. So remember, these lists are subjective, and that number one choice for Trevor J. Brown comes from his upbringing and his memories and his emotions and viewpoint. And it's a good choice, really good choice. Well, I'm going to go with mine now, my first choice. Now, it's not necessarily ranked most favorite to least favorite for me. It's just one of 5 that I'm going to do. I know there's 4 on Mount Rushmore, 4 presidents, but this is rock and roll. We're going to do 5 and some honorable mentions, okay? My first one that I'm going to mention is also known as the King of Rock and Roll, Elvis Presley. He took the world by storm. My mother, she was a Elvis teeny bopper. She always had it on the radio when I was a little baby. She was rocking me to his stuff. He had a recent birthday, I think it was 91. And my dad was born about 5 days apart from Elvis Presley, so he always thought he had a special bond with Elvis. Yeah, Elvis, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 1986, he was inducted, called the King of Rock and Roll, like I said. Heartbreak Hotel was his first hit and first number one. It was number one, get this, Trevor, and listeners, viewers, 8 weeks. Heartbreak Hotel, 8 weeks. That's incredible.
Pretty good.
He had 107 top 40 hits, according to my Joel Whitburn book. I think that was published up to like 1989. So if there were any more Elvis hits, it's not in that count. Don't Be Cruel, Hound Dog, All Shook Up, The Ghetto. Those were all memorable hits for Elvis Presley. And of course, he's a cultural icon to this day. Who hasn't tried to imitate him, right?
Well, and was somebody that was one of the first to really cross genres. Not only was he great into rock and roll, but some of my favorite Elvis stuff is his gospel. Mm-hmm. And again, somebody else where you can look and say, like, well, if he didn't die so young, what would his career have been? And he, up until his death, had a great career. When you think of he did different genres of music. He was a movie star. Not all of his movies were great, but he was a movie star, and he toured and sold out arenas. What would have been if we didn't lose Elvis at such a young age, but cannot go wrong with that choice.
To this day, he's so famous. All these generations that never really knew him but are aware of him, he's an icon. How about you?
Well, I will say Elvis did make my honorable mention, so we'll probably mention that again later. My next one, this is, I'll be honest, I don't want to go too deep into serious things with you because this is supposed to be a fun list, but this next person is a little more controversial non-musically, but if you can separate the music from the man, I think it's important to do. They consider this person, Rick, the greatest entertainer of all time. He was popular in the late 60s. His solo career started in the late 70s. He was obviously bigger in the 80s, but I have to put the king of pop on my list, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, for me, is honestly, when I think of things from my childhood that are very important, that sort of define me in a way, Michael Jackson's on that list, his music. Circus Pizza. I remember Circus Pizza. I remember Ghostbusters, Home Alone. Those are all things that when you start defining who Trevor Brown is, that is part of me. I mean, Michael Jackson just has this smoothness to his voice that I can't describe. And also there are things in terms of the records he released that will never be done in the history of music ever again. I will give you an example. His first big solo album was probably Off the Wall in 1979. We all know what came after that. It was Thriller. It was the first number one album for him. That album, Rick, spent 37 non-consecutive weeks at number one. 37 weeks. It won 8 Grammy Awards. That one album won 8 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year. It went 34 times platinum. I'll give you one other stat. There are 9 total songs on that record, Rick. 7 were singles. 7. It'll never happen again. There are huge artists today. There are massive artists. I'm not taking anything away from them. Taylor Swift, Beyonce, but they don't make albums like that anymore. We all remember the Moonwalk and everything was big. I mean, and it was all planned out. And the other thing Michael Jackson did really well, in my opinion, in terms of career, was when he came out with music, it was a big deal. And then he would go on these tours that went on for years. But there were gaps in between his albums by years. I think Off the Wall was 79. Thriller came out in 82. His next album after that was like 87, which was bad, I believe. So there was a long time in between. So he knew he had this power of, here I am, and now I'm going to go away for a bit. And it was a moment in time. It was things that we can remember around those times, where a lot of today artists are just here all the time. They're overexposed in a way. Where I know Michael Jackson was around when he wasn't releasing albums, but It wasn't an album every year. He gave you his best stuff. I mean, think of albums today. They're overblown. They're bloated. He gave you 9 tracks on Thriller. 7 were singles. Think about that. That's nuts. So Michael Jackson for me, I'm gushing. I'm fanboying here. But Michael Jackson's on my Mount Rushmore.
As it should be. He hit your generation really hard. Jackson 5 for us, and then when he went solo, he was fantastic as well. The stuff he came up with, the moonwalk.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I just got a new hip, but I still try to do a moonwalk. I can't do a moonwalk.
I know in the last episode when we were talking about the ladies on Mount Rushmore, we mentioned Ed Sullivan. Go back and watch Jackson 5 on Ed Sullivan and some of those performances because they were awesome. It was really cool to see.
And they played off each other so well, that sibling thing. And then sometimes they'd introduce that young Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
Out there. And yeah, that was quite a family. So, yeah, that's a good choice. All right, my number 2 pick, or second pick, I should say, is Sir Tom Jones.
Ooh, yes.
That guy's voice. Well, I saw him at a casino up in Hinckley. You know, this was maybe 90s, late 80s. They were throwing underwear up there. The females were throwing underwear up to him.
Why didn't you throw your underwear up there?
My arm, I threw it out.
Yeah.
But what a performer. What a voice. What a presence. Elvis Presley, I mentioned earlier. Now Tom Jones. 64, he was voted Best New Artist at the Grammys. His first hit of many was It's Not Unusual in 65. And then What's New Pussycat, Delilah. You see him on stage, just larger than life, belting that out. I'll Never Fall in Love Again. I did a show on that. It was the greatest live performance on a TV show. It was the Dusty Springfield show. And I think that was back in, 67 or 68. But I tried to put it on YouTube a year ago, but they wouldn't let me put it up there. And then I found a way to cover him up while I was performing, and they let me put it up there. It kind of took away from the show a little bit, but it was such a great performance. His vocals, he would change up on a word again. Go check that episode out. But it's just such a dynamic performer. And She's a Lady. In 81, he did a Prince song called Kiss. And he had a hit with that. It rejuvenated his career. And, of course, recently he's been on The British Voice. And he's still, Sir Tom Jones, a big deal.
Definition of entertainer. Where it's not just, I'm going to come up here and sing songs for you. It's a whole ordeal when you go see guys like that. Also, most of those songs that you mentioned, total earworms. I had to look up the definition of earworms because for like the last 6 weeks, Rick, remember that song? This isn't a boomer song, but many people will know it because it was a huge hit. But do you remember Gautier and that song, Somebody That I Used to Know?
Yes.
I've had that in my head for like 6 weeks, and it's gotten so bad, my wife has threatened me with divorce, which she should. But no, I mean, and it's getting to a point where I'm going around our apartment and I'm singing it and putting my cat's name in the lyrics and everything. But I had to look up what an earworm was, where it's like it gets into your head and it just sort of. And then there's a list on the Wikipedia page that talks about these songs are earworms, where if they get into your head, they're not going to leave. So the Gautier song's been in my head. But I guarantee you, if you start humming some of those Tom Jones songs, they're going to get into your head and they're not going to leave for a while. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just warning you because they definitely are catchy.
Well, thanks for putting Gautier into my head because that's happened to me with that song before.
It does. But it's a really good song. I would say that song, Rick, I think that's one of the top 10 best songs written in the last 20 years.
I don't listen to new music that much. Hardly at all. I'm so into doing this show and a bunch of old music because I like it. But that song is catchy as heck. And I'll probably listen to it later just for fun. All right. So, yeah, Tom Jones. And he also had that show, This Is Tom Jones, that I think it came on in 1968. I was a regular viewer of that. I know they had Crosby, Stills, and Nash on there. They had Janis Joplin, or he did. And so he had a lot of good guests on there as well. And, of course, that guy could move. He'd have the tuxedo, and then all of a sudden he'd be sweating. He'd take the tie off, and he'd kind of throw it. And he had that little microphone with the pinky ring, and he held it like this, you know. And I just remember all that from being an 11-year-old kid. Tom Jones. How about you? What do you got now?
Okay, well, I guess you could combo my 3 and 4. Do we want to do them separately, though, or do you want to combo?
No, you can do it if it works. Sure.
Well, I'm putting Paul McCartney and John Lennon on my list. So we'll start with Paul McCartney, of course. Sir Paul McCartney. He was a member of the band called the Beatles. Do you know them, Rick?
Wasn't that the band he was in before Wings?
Yeah. Beatles, Wings, incredible solo career. He sold over 100 million records worldwide. He has written or co-written 32 chart toppers. He's a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once as a Beatle, once as a solo musician, which in a way kind of surprises me. Not that he's in twice, but I am going to start the petition that he should be in 3 times, because Wings is incredible. If he wasn't a Beatle and he just did Wings, I think Wings would be more appreciated. But because Wings came after the Beatles, I don't think that group is appreciated enough. So I think he should be in another time as Wings. He has an Academy Award, 19 Grammy Awards. You want to talk about great vocal performances for Sir Paul McCartney? I listed some songs. For the Beatles, some of my favorites include Hey Jude on his vocal, The Long and Winding Road, Oh Darling, Here, There, and Everywhere, P.S. I Love You, and one that is so out of left field that you would be surprised, but I love the song A Taste of Honey. I know that's probably a forgettable tune for most people, but I enjoy that. For Wings, go listen to his vocal on My Love, something like Rock Show, Junior's Farm, Silly Love Songs. A cut that's not really famous, a song that I love is called I'm Carrying. I think that's on London Town. Great track. Solo-wise, from McCartney 2, Waterfalls. Another song called The Backseat of My Car, which ends the album Ram. Really good. And if you're looking for some stuff that is more newer from Paul McCartney, his last studio album was called McCartney 3. And 2 tracks I really like on there in terms of vocals, a song called Pretty Boys and The Kiss of Venus. Sir Paul McCartney, he's, in terms of just artists, my favorite of all time. So I of course had to include Paul, but he's my number 3 there.
I didn't mention him because I knew you would, frankly.
Yeah.
She's Leaving Home.
Wonderful, yes.
The vocal on that, he could sing the old British, beer hall pub music style really well. He could do Little Richard, and then he does She's Leaving Home with the harp, and he is so versatile.
Very versatile. You could have a song like Oh Darling, where he's belting it, and then you have a song like you mentioned, She's Leaving Home, where it's very softer, or some of the, as Lennon would call it, the granny music, the old style 1920s and 30s, which wasn't Lennon's favorite stuff, but Paul could do that pretty well. And my 4th is Lennon, of course. He performed or wrote or co-wrote 25 number 1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once as a Beatle, once as a solo musician. Songwriters Hall of Fame. In terms of Beatles songs, Twist and Shout, obviously. Your Blues from the White Album, that song just hits with his vocal, but also with lyrical content. It's quite dark. And also Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is always going to be one of my favorite songs. And solo-wise, I love a track, Give Me Some Truth from Imagine, which I think it's on the Abbey Road Deluxe. There's actually a very, very early demo of Give Me Some Truth, and it would have been interesting to see if that would eventually have been a Beatles song or not, but Lennon knocks it out of the park with his version on Imagine. Also a song called God is great vocally, and Mother too, and that's from the Plastic Ono Band album from 1970. So it just shows, like, between Lennon and McCartney, they could both hammer it home with power rock vocals, but then they also had this delicate nature to them. A song from Lennon like Love, which is very delicate and kind of like a lullaby. the yin and the yang. That's what made it great.
Yeah.
It's the greatest songwriting partnership in history, and that's why they're both on my list.
Good choices. Well, I'll give you 3 and 4. How's that?
Love it.
Chuck Berry.
Good choice.
So many of the musicians that we enjoyed after Chuck Berry were because of Chuck Berry. That rock and roll riff that he had, Keith Richards, right?
Yeah.
You think of him when you think of Chuck Berry. He was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '85, inducted. One of rock's most influential artists. There's no question about that. Maybelline, Roll Over Beethoven, School Days, Johnny B. Good. Have you been to a wedding where they've had a band where they didn't play that? Johnny B. Good? Well, maybe you have, Trev, haven't, but every wedding I went to back in the day, the band played Johnny B. Good, and my brother would jump up on stage and do it. You know, they go, and he did it really well. Carol, the Stones did a nice live version on Get Your Ya-Ya's Out of That. Sweet Little 16. His last number one, My Ding-a-Ling. But he...
controversial.
Yeah. He set a precedent on rock and roll. His chord choices, the way he played, the duck walk. And he was a tough guy. He would go to a show, he'd have a gun, he'd want the money, and he wanted them to supply the backup band wherever he'd go, because you get ripped off too much back in the day when you play the circuit he did. But yeah, Chuck Berry, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Mount Rushmore, that's one of my choices.
Good pick.
Thank you. I think you'll like this one just as much, if not more. Buddy Holly.
Great choice.
Here's another guy that set a different tone in rock and roll. He wanted to produce his own stuff. He wanted power, just like Trevor, your inherent dream, empire. You wanted to have control over it, freedom, creative freedom, and that's what he wanted. And he kind of pioneered all of that. That'll Be the Day. It was number 1 in 57. Peggy Sue, Oh Boy, Maybe Baby, Rave On, It Doesn't Matter Anymore, which was written by Paul Anka. But those are all his, and there's many, many more, and there's a well-known story about him. If you don't know it, go look it up. He died with Richie Valens and the Big Bopper, of course, in that plane crash coming out of the surf, Clear Lake, Iowa, which Trevor, I, and Ed Hallbeck visited, fellow podcaster, and you can just feel the history of that place dripping from the rafters. He's a big part of rock and roll history the day the music died. Buddy Holly, one of my choices for Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, somebody we lost, another one we talked about in the last episode, Karen Carpenter, and also Patsy Cline. Well, now for the men, Buddy Holly, somebody that we lost way too soon. And I know we've said it before, but it makes you think of what more they would have done in their life. We just talked about John Lennon. He was shot and killed in New York City. What would John Lennon have done? It would have been a lot more than just making records. These guys and gals were more than just singers. They were cultural icons. And I think of somebody like, going back to John Lennon, we know he acted, we know he did art, but I mean, John Lennon would be somebody that I would love to hear from today. What would Buddy Holly be doing today? He had such an iconic look. He was cool. I mean, Buddy Holly was cool. And you rattled off all of those songs, those song titles. And he wasn't that old when he died. He had all of these hits when he died. So it's incredible to think what would have been if he was still around, if we got him a little bit longer.
So Buddy Holly. Okay, what's your number 5?
Well, I just wrote down some honorable mentions.
Yeah, I'm going to do that too.
It could be any of these, but, well, the one I mentioned earlier was Elvis. You know, he probably should be on my list. I mean, Elvis has so many hits. And honestly, when I think about it, he was, you know, if I could team up McCartney and Lennon and put them as one head on the Rushmore, then Elvis would slip up there. But some other names that I wrote down, Frank Sinatra, Marvin Gaye, and also Simon and Garfunkel. Simon and Garfunkel has some of the greatest vocals. It was tough not to put them on my list. I mean, if I could team them up and put them on one, sure. But you listen to a song, Scarborough Fair, that song gets me every time. That song is just haunting, just beautiful.
Well, there's another chance for you, Trevor. We're going to do another episode with groups or bands. You're right. Simon and Garfunkel, Frank Lloyd Wright. I mean, they were so intellectual with their writing and whimsical, and they could rock too. So maybe we can cover that next time.
Yeah, I love it.
Anybody else?
That's all I have written down. I'm sure there's a million more I could put onto the list.
Again, viewers and listeners, this is subjective. This is our favorites for various reasons. You might agree a little bit or totally or not at all. That's fine. We don't care. But let us know what you think. Go ahead. Like, share, comment. Please comment on what yours are and subscribe. This is where you can do that. All right, I'm going to mention my remaining honorable mention guys, and then we're going to have to get out of here. Jim Croce, Roy Orbison. He could be up on Mount Rushmore so easily. John Denver, David Bowie. Trevor and I both love him. All right, Trevor, thank you. Tell us how they can view your podcast and your other projects.
InherentDream.com for the podcast. We promote it as we have pretty good interviews. Well, not pretty good. The best interviews. We have talk on music, news, sports, commentary on life. We talk about movies. We just have fun. We try to give a little bit of joy in what can be a dark world at times. So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, come on over to InherentDream.com. Check out our podcast. It's 20 minutes. Rick has been a guest. We have different authors, musicians. Friday nights, we sometimes let our hair down, and we have a very popular NFL pick segment when the season is going. So come on over, InherentDream.com.
I highly recommend Trevor's show and all his projects. He's an amazing guy. He's been doing this a long time. Former coworker and friend. He's not a former friend. He's a friend. And I really appreciate him. Trevor, thanks for coming on. This was the Mount Rushmore Men's edition on My Boomer Buddies podcast. Until next time, for Trevor J. Brown, I'm Rick Reed. We'll see you
around the block.